Welcome to Soul Study, the podcast where we explore personal growth, spirituality, and the deeper questions of what it means to consciously create a life we love. Think of this as your weekly book club for the soul. Each episode will study powerful ideas from transformative books, reflect how they apply to real life, and gently challenge ourselves to grow together. This isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. It's about remembering that you are energy, you are powerful, and you are always in a state of creation. Here, we take what resonates and leave the rest. So take a breath, open your heart, and get ready to become your most magnetic self. Let's begin today's Soul Study. Hello everyone, Jules here, and welcome back to Soul Study. It's a podcast to help you become your happiest, healthiest, most magnetic version of you. We are continuing on this week with Mastery. Last week, we read chapter 2, and it was about the apprenticeship phase and what different avenues you can take in that phase, like different ways of apprenticeship. Now, our soul challenge last week was candlelight, to light a candle and meditate for 5 to 10 minutes just looking into the light. I only was able to do this like maybe one time. I was very busy this week, but it is something I want to try again. So I think I'm going to add that into my meditation routine. Also, sorry that this episode is more than likely going to be late. I'm recording it early, but I just picked up a shift, and so I don't think I'll be able to edit it in time for it to come out. So it might be a couple hours late. Once again, apologies. Life is crazy, but very, very fortunate and happy to have the work. But anyway, let me know how the candlelight meditations went for you guys, and let's talk about what we're going to learn this week. This week, we dove into chapter 3, and we are going to be talking about the mentor dynamic and why having a mentor is crucial on your road to mastery. So without any further ado, let's dive into quote number 1 that is going to be on page 103. And it says, "The reason you require a mentor is simple. Life is short. You have only so much time and so much energy to expend. Your most creative years are generally in your late 20s and into your 40s. So what this quote tells us is that mentors are the fast track for gaining knowledge and skills. Learning from someone who has experience cuts through a lot of trial and error in your journey when you are figuring things out for yourself. I also really like this quote because it shows that in our society of people thinking that you have to accomplish things when you are in your early 20s or mid 20s, it shows us that there is still a lot of energy that is still inside of us to create, to expand, to grow within our late 20s up to our 40s. And personally, I believe even if you are past your 40s and still trying to find your life's task, there is no age limit to pursuing the goal of mastery in whatever craft you are trying to pursue it in. Now, finding the right mentor that aligns with your life's task is so important because you want to find someone who is where you want to be or fits in the next step of where you want to go in your life's task. So even if it's not the person that is at the very, very top of where you want to be, finding someone that is just one level up from you can be a great place to start, because then when you outgrow that master, as we will see in some of the other quotes, you then can move on to another one or obtain another master to fill in the gaps of your weaknesses in this path to your mastery. Now, how I kind of felt about this quote for myself was that my belief system, I thought that once I was done with my 20s, that my career would be over, especially as a dancer. Growing up as a dancer, they were like, okay, yeah, once you're 30, you're not going to be performing as much. And I was like, oh, shoot, I'm 27 starting my professional dance career. Did I waste my 20s? But what this kind of shows me, and also people that I have talk to and other performers I have personally become friends with, they are in their 30s. Some of them are even in their 40s, and some of them are even in their 50s, and they're still performing. So that was a lie. But now that I'm in my late 20s, I am also noticing that I am having a lot more stable energy to create and to learn and to grow. I feel in my early 20s was a state of just anxiety and feeling like I needed to have my life together and not knowing what was going on. And now that I'm in my late 20s, I feel very secure in myself. I have a better understanding of how the world kind of works. And I feel through what I learned in my 20s, I can now move on into my 30s and really pursue a path, really pursue my life's task and my passion, and do it in a way that has a solid foundation for me to grow upon. And I've learned specifically through my own mentorship program that it truly does help to have someone to push you and teach you their tricks of the trade without you just kind of throwing stuff and seeing what sticks. Like they kind of already understand what actions you need to take in order for you to move quickly and not have so much trial and error. So that's what I've seen specifically through my mentorship. And that has shown me that this quote is proven to be true, that having a mentor does move you along a lot faster than without one. Now, for you, trying to find the right mentor. First of all, who is someone that you look up to in the field that you want to master? Whether that is someone famous within that field or if it's someone that you just kind of know in the circle of the field that you're in currently, like in the city that you're in, who's someone that you look up to in the field that you want to master? Figure that out first. And then also, do you know anyone personally in that field, or can you get to know someone in that field that can help you further yourself along the path to becoming a master? Because sometimes you might not get a physical mentor. Sometimes you will have someone that you have to like read books about. I would say like having a physical mentor is like the best and possible. But first, as we're going to learn in the next quote, you have to do some work for yourself. So with that being said, let's dive into our second quote of the day. That is going to be on page 106 and 107. I kind of combined two passages together. And it says, if you work on yourself first, as Faraday did, developing a solid work ethic and organizational skills, eventually the right teacher will appear in your life. Although one mentor at a time is best, it is not always possible to find the perfect one. In such a case, an alternate strategy is to find several mentors in your immediate environment, each one filling strategic gaps in your knowledge and experience. Now, this quote gives you a strategy into finding a mentor. If you're struggling with finding someone, a great option is to start working on yourself first by pursuing your dreams and desires and aligning your energy with that of your life's task. Because then if you do that, you may not even need to seek out a master. One may just find you or just fall into your life because you just are pursuing your path. Now, I appreciate this quote talking about having many masters besides just one specifically. Especially if you're someone that is a multidisciplinary person, like such as myself. Like I do dance, I do a little bit of aerial, I do flow art. I technically have to market myself as a business, as a performer. So having one master for all those things is going to be a little bit hard for me to find. I have found one that actually does a good variety of those things, which has been really cool. There are still gaps that I'm seeing that my mentor is not able to quite fill in. So I am needing to go pursue other areas of mentorship to fill in my weaknesses. So if you're also a multidisciplinary person, one master may not be the way to go for you. You may need to find multiple. But just start with one. Just start with someone that you can look up to. And like I said, with finding a master that can fill in my weaknesses, to know what masters that you need to know what your weaknesses are and your faults and find the right person to help you grow in those specific areas. Now, an example of working on yourself first before finding your mentor, that happened to me personally. I didn't seek out my mentor. What happened was that I was working on myself and I was getting into different performance circles with different friends. And due to that, I kind of met her through a friend and didn't even know she was accepting apprentices until way after. I met her one time. I followed her on Instagram because I thought she was just amazing. Like her performance ethic and how she carries herself on stage, I just really looked up to and admired. So I followed her on Instagram. And then like months later, like I wasn't even actively looking for a mentor, but months later, a post of hers popped up on my page and it said that she had a mentorship program. And I was like, oh, well, I like her style. Let's give it a shot. Like I didn't even have to actively search out for her. It just kind of came to me because I was working on myself and working on putting myself in the area of what I wanted my life's task to be. And because what I want to do with my life's task is has multiple disciplines in it, I'm also in need of multiple mentors. So just because I have one right now, that's not going to stop me from finding another one because I'm now starting to see what my weaknesses are and that there are other mentors that can help me fill in those gaps. I'm still going to keep my first mentor, of course, until I feel like I have learned all I can from her. But right now, like she is a great base mentor that is teaching me a bunch of multiple different things, but there's just tiny little gaps that I need to find other mentors for. And I actually think I already know who I want to talk to, which is kind of cool. And I'll keep you guys posted on my mentor journey. So for yourself, if you're still looking for that mentor, work on yourself first and place yourself and find circles of people that are in your desired field. So go to workshops that are in something you want to master in, go to gatherings, go to events, get to know the like-minded people that are already in the field that you are trying to master. So you're not specifically seeking out a mentor, but you're just putting yourself in the community of those people that are in that field. And then also, if you can't find like active physical places to go to and talk to people, first learn about your field through as many books as you can, because books can also be mentors, because mentors may not always come in person. It may come through someone that you can't have a face-to-face interaction with. So someone famous, someone who is maybe passed on, like an ancient master, and you're just reading their texts and their works and you're learning from them that way. That is also a possibility. Continuing on with working on yourself in order to find a master, when you do find that master, you're going to still have to work on yourself. And that is what our next quote talks about. So let's dive into quote number 3. That is going to be on page 115. And it says, "You must continually start over and challenge yourself." So it's a short quote, but very powerful, because the quest of mastery is to continue to start at the beginning, but not in the beginning in which you may think. Let's compare this to a video game. For instance, you start at level 0, and once you start leveling up, you reach level 1, you then start at the bottom again before you can reach level 2. So your experience bar, let's say you're in a video game, you have an experience bar. You're at level 0 right now. Once your experience bar just starts filling up and hits this, then you reach level 1, but then your experience goes all the way back down again. And you have to learn and regain experience to get to level 2, and learn and regain to get to level 3. So every time you meet that next level, you are starting at the beginning of the level ahead, if that makes sense. So it's not about relearning what you've already achieved, but learning the next step onto the path. And sometimes you have to start again at the beginning of that next step. So to me, this kind of gives the concept, besides the video game, it's kind of like a snake shedding its skin. So the snake, has its skin, and then once it outgrows it, it needs to shed it, and then it has fresh skin underneath, and then eventually it keeps growing, and once it outgrows that skin, it sheds and starts over. So it's a continual cycle, a process that just keeps repeating itself to keep leveling up or to keep growing. And looking back, I have had so many moments that have been starting over in something, or at the beginning of a new challenge, even when I feel like I've already accomplished something else. I've accomplished something and I'm like, oh, awesome. Okay, cool. But then the next step to move forward is something that I have to start over, or learn something completely new, even though I already knew that one step. So it didn't take away from my accomplishments, but it's just adding on. And sometimes that feels like starting over. And it's never a bad thing. It can be daunting to start at the beginning again of another step, but it's also exciting because just like the other things that you've accomplished, if you look back, this is just another stone on the path to where you want to be. And now that you can and for myself, now that I know what's going to be ahead, I know what's ahead, adding another stone, adding another challenge just pushes me further because I'm now excited to take that next step. So it is scary, it can be daunting, but you know that it is the next step to pursue you for further. So for yourself, just like I was doing, when you're going through a challenge, remind yourself of what you've already accomplished, because at one point, those accomplishments were also challenges that you have faced and conquered, and now you're moving on to the next thing. And know that it is just a step on the journey ahead. And so instead of rejecting it, try embracing it with the tools that you've learned along the way from the previous steps. That's kind of how you can continue on with that. And that's it for quote number 3. Let's move on to quote number 4. I'm sorry that we are rushing just a little bit, but like I said, I have a lot of gigs today and tomorrow. So getting this out a little bit later than usual because my weekend got unexpectedly stacked, which is a great thing. It's a good thing. We're making money, which is great. But my apologies for the lateness. So quote number 4 is going to be on page 115, same page, just a little bit lower. And it says, "To reach mastery requires some toughness and a constant connection to reality." So I really like this quote, and I really, really like the passage that comes after it. I actually very much believe in what they are talking about. Because what it explains is that our dreams and desires, if we want to become a master in something, it is not handed to those who have not walked the path to get there. There is struggle that one must face on the path, and that is an essential part to mastery. Nowadays, a lot of people shy away from looking at their weaknesses or challenges, and they only want to hear their praises. People want softness. And don't get me wrong, toughness, there was an amount of abuse back in the day that was trying to make people tough, and we don't want that. But we don't also want people to not go through struggles to help you grow, to not understand and be faced with your weaknesses to make you stronger. Of course, we want to know that we are doing well and get reassurance when we are on the path, but how can we get better if we don't know what we need to work on? So finding a master that will tell you what your weaknesses are, just to your face, straight up, be like, hey, good job, you did this great, but here's where you need to improve in this, and this, and this, and here's how to get there. You need someone to tell you that isn't just sugarcoating it or just giving you praises. Now, in dance specifically in my life, my favorite teachers have been the ones that have pushed me and told me I wasn't good enough yet. They were very honest. And if I'm being honest, it took me a while to get tough. At first, I just thought I wasn't a good dancer. I wasn't a good performer, and I wasn't meant to do that. But specifically in college, because I was told this in high school, but I was also told it again in college, but specifically in college, I was told that I was in the middle of the pack, by my professors, and that I didn't really stand out in any way as a performer. But at that point in time, this was going to be my degree. I decided that I wanted to pursue being a performer. So with that in mind, and because I wanted this now, at this point, I had spent a lot of money trying to pursue this path, and it is something that I actually really, really, really wanted to do. So when I decided that this was what I wanted, I worked harder. I worked a lot harder becoming a better performer. And by the end of my college career, by my graduation, the same professor that told me that I was in the middle of the pack said that she was the most proud of me compared to a lot of the other dancers because I grew the most from the start of my college career to the end of my college career. I grew the most because I still had some things to learn. Don't get me wrong. She was like, here, these are the things you still need to work on. But instead of staying where I was at, I actually grew in those 4 years rather than a lot of people just staying the same. Even the people that were top of their class, they just stayed the same. They didn't grow. And through that process, through those really hard to hear, tough lessons that I learned in college, it pushed me to grow more. And honestly, I love the second half of this quote of staying connected to reality, because you have to be in your body. You have to be present when you are trying to grow and become better at something. Now, for yourself, allow yourself to look at your weaknesses and face them. Allow yourself to not get all emotional and caught up and insecure, just accept them. Be like, okay, yes, no, that is true. These are my weaknesses here. And instead of blaming or shaming myself in my weaknesses, I'm going to fully embrace them and actually work on them. That's the first step of, especially when you find the master or the mentor that is telling you to your face, hey, this isn't good. You have to work on this. So definitely listen to them and don't take it personally. Just like we learned in our second book, don't take it personally. Use it as a tool to get better. And find a mentor when you are looking for your mentor. Find a mentor that will be honest and maybe even a little bit tough with you to push you to where you need to go. Now, that is it for all of our quotes. I really, really enjoyed this chapter because it talked a lot about finding that mentor and how that dynamic between you and a mentor is going to work. So if you didn't read it all the way through, make sure you read the rest of the chapter. So let's move on to the journal prompts and the Soul Study Challenge, and then we will get to what we are going to read for next week. All right, let's get on to our journal prompts. Now, if you're watching the video podcast, you may have noticed that it is night. I am wearing different clothes. That is because I had to go and fill in for some, one of the performers got sick, so I went and filled in for them. So now we are later in the day to finish off this episode. So apologies for the not continuity in my attire. To recap what we talked about today really quick before we get back to those journal prompts for myself and for you, is we talked about the mentor dynamic and why having a mentor is crucial in your road to mastery, and how sometimes finding that mentor means finding someone that can point out all your weaknesses. So let's move on to our journal prompts. Journal prompt number 1. Who in your life or field do you look up to and want to learn from? If you don't have a mentor yet, what is one step you could take to get closer to that person or community? Journal prompt number 2. Think of a time you had to start over at something. What did you gain from beginning again that you wouldn't have had otherwise? Journal prompt number 3. What is one weakness you've been avoiding looking at? What could change in your life if you faced it head on and found someone to help you grow in it? So those are our 3 journal prompts for this week. Taking steps to find a mentor. Now, you don't have to find a mentor right now. We're moving through this book very quickly. And so if you're in a position where you're still figuring out your life's task, that's fine. At least you know down the road what the steps are going to be when you find your life's task and want to start entering a mentorship phase. So take your time. There's literally no rush at all. Sometimes I like to read all the instructions before even beginning step 1. So if you're in the state where you're like, okay, I'm going to read all of mastery, read all the instructions, and then go and begin step 1, that's fine too. Whatever works for your life and your path. So let's move on to our weekly Soul Study Challenge wheel spin. Okay, and let's give our wheel a spin. All right, this time we have I Love Me. Let me tell you guys what this one is all about. I Love Me is write one affirmation about yourself each morning and speak it aloud. So if you are feeling a little imposter syndrome, if you are feeling a little bit unsure about your whole trying to find your life's task, about not being good enough to even have a mentor, any doubts that you are having this week, just say and write one affirmation about yourself and say it aloud each morning for this week. So that is our soul challenge. Now, for next week, we are going to read all of chapter 4. It is about the same length as the chapter we just read, or maybe just like a little bit longer. I actually don't have the book here with me because I brought it to work with me to read. So yes, we are reading all of chapter 4, and then chapter 5, we are going to break up into 2 parts. So this week, though, just read chapter 4. I think it's about 40 pages. I don't remember, but I think it's about 40 pages. So read that for next week. And that is it. Once again, if you want to follow the podcast, make sure to watch the video podcast on YouTube under Soul Study. And then we also have the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, all under Soul Study as well. If you want to see more from me and what I do, feel free to follow me on Instagram and YouTube at Dream Life Jewels. You can see some of my hobbies there, some of my performances, some of my other artistic endeavors that I do there. So make sure to follow me there. You can shoot me a DM. You can drop a comment if you guys want to connect. I would love to get to know you guys a little bit more and connect with you some more. I'm excited to continue this book. It is our 3rd book in Soul Study. Yay! I'm excited for that. Sorry about the late episode this week. It was a hectic week, which I'm sure a bunch of you out there also felt. So next week, don't worry, I'm going to have the episode right on time. Thank you guys for your patience. And thank you guys once again so much for listening in. Remember, take what resonates, leave the rest, and I hope you have an amazing week becoming your happiest, healthiest, most magnetic version of you. And until next time, bye.